Awesome. Well, thanks everyone for joining us live and in person. I hope we can answer a lot of questions for you at the end. As I briefly mentioned, if you didn't hear, you can type questions into the chat during the presentation if you'd like those answered like right away. Otherwise, write them down. We'll open up for like an open discussion to answer questions at the end. So this is Anatomy of a Great Website. This is the first webinar by Fangirl Foundry, that's us. And we hope to be doing some more in the future. So we'd love to hear your feedback too, if you thought it was helpful. And a little bit about us. We are Fangirl Foundry. I am Star, the website wizard of the duo, also the tea drinker. And then Joanne, you met. She is, say hi, Joanne. She is our design diva. She does all of our graphic design, and she is the coffee aficionado between us. We are here to empower authors, creatives, and small businesses to take charge of their narrative. We offer affordable web design and promotional material solutions to help them do that. If you'd like to learn more about us, you can visit our website. That's fangirlfoundry.com.
Start on the bottom of your screen. Can you click on hide because it's showing that you are sharing your screen?
Thank you.
There we go.
All right, so we'll get started. My goal with this presentation is just to kind of give you information, enough information that you become a comfortable website owner, whether you own a website now, whether you're considering website ownership, you're just getting into it. I'm hoping to give you a foundational knowledge of pretty much every component of a website so that you can make great decisions for yourself.
There are a lot of people out there who are more than happy to give you bad information and to take your money. And we just want to help folks learn enough so that they're not taken advantage of. We just, yeah.
Exactly. All right, so first of all, one of the #1 questions I get is who should have a website? And my answer is almost everyone. Whether or not you're an entrepreneur with a small business, you're an author, you're an artist, illustrator, creative, pretty much anyone who is looking to connect with a potential audience or customer should have a website. And I think the pandemic really, really cleared that up for people. You know, businesses were closing, events were canceled, people couldn't get face-to-face anymore and share themselves with other people, like share about themselves. So an online presence became really, really important. And a website is a crucial component to an online presence. And what makes it so crucial? Well, websites are powerful tools. So they provide freedom from a lot of things, a lot of constraints that you might find on social media, including whims and trends. Like 2 years ago, everyone was asking me if they should be on Snapchat. No one asks me that anymore. Now they ask if they should be on TikTok. And in 2 years, who knows what they'll ask me. There are some, you know, the big ones, Facebook and Instagram and those types of things that are always there. But there's a lot of whims and trends that go along with social media. But websites and the internet is here to stay. They're free from, you know, all the politics that you'll find on social media. And unless you're a politician, I suggest keeping the politics off of your website. They're free of clicks and gatekeepers. So you'll often notice that social media is very cliquish. Like groups will tend to gravitate towards different social media platforms. For example, a lot of writers are on Twitter. I always say moms are on Facebook. And so it's hard to connect with more than one people unless you're on a lot of different platforms. And it's also, there's a gatekeeping involved in social media because most of the times you really interact with people, you need to have an account, and not everyone wants to sign up for an account on every platform. And also, you can't really control your narrative as much as you can with a website. And that's because in social media, a lot of people can have a say. They can comment, they can share your stuff and say whatever they want about it. You know, there are some controls involved, but really it's an open forum for people. Your website is controlled by you. And yeah, you can allow people to comment and stuff like that on your website, but you get to make those choices for yourself, for your narrative. And finally, one of the biggest reasons is that people nowadays expect to find you on the internet. When they type your name, your book, your business into you know, Google or another search engine, they expect to be able to find you. And so it's just an expectation nowadays. So let's talk about what a well-designed website says about you. Well, first of all, with your content, it's going to show that you are knowledgeable in your area. So whether you're a writer for picture books or you have your own business, you're going to share your knowledge about what you write about your business or whatever on there. And it's going to show people that you know what you're talking about. People are more likely to trust people with websites. You know, social media is free. A lot of people create accounts, and there are a lot of, you know, they call them bots, but there are usually people behind those bots that create accounts, and you don't know if that's a real person or not. So it's hard to trust people on social media. But if you have a website, it shows that you've really taken the time and put in the effort, and that also gives you a more professional appearance. Now, all of that is to say if it's a well-designed website, but if your website is outdated or poorly designed, it can actually, you know, have the opposite effect, and would be something you'd want to avoid. So I do say that, like, no website is better than a bad website, but obviously, you know, the goal is to have a great website. So let's touch a little bit more on this social media versus website debate, because I do hear it a lot that people with websites think that, okay, I have a website, I don't need to be on social media, I'm good. Or they'll have a social media page and they'll be like, why do I need a website? This is free. Well, first of all, let's talk about websites. So if you have a website, websites are great for all of the reasons I just stated, but they're not magical. They're not going to go out and connect you with people. So unless you put in some work, you're not going to attract visitors to your website. And they do have limits, one of those being costs. There's costs associated with owning a website typically. However, I've stated all the reasons why social media has its downfalls too. Like, it's polarizing. There's different demographics on different platforms, and it's really hard to stretch yourself and do a good job connecting with people on multiple platforms. And some people are just not on social media, and they refuse to be on social media. So you're losing out connecting with those people. So your Fangirls recommend a combination of both, because for a really healthy online presence, you need a balanced diet of a website where you're controlling your narrative, you're showing people who you are, you're showing that you're professional, and connecting with people who are out there in social media world. Okay, so we have a few coffee breaks planned for our presentation, and this is one of them. We have a splash of knowledge. It just gives me a time to take a sip. And if you do have any questions in the comments, Joanne will read them off to me. But our quick tip for this coffee break is, before you dive into website ownership, and I realize some of you may already have a website, and it's fine. I think even if you own a website, you still want to think about what the goal of having a website is for you. You need to identify who you're trying to reach with your website and why you're trying to reach them, because that goal should drive everything from your content to your design to your strategy, which we will be getting into in the upcoming slides. And Joanne, I'm guessing no one had any questions, so I'll just move on.
No one has any questions, but I would just like to welcome Annie. Hi, Annie.
Hi, Annie.
And Annie, we have a little chat box and a question box. So if you have any questions, you can throw them in there. And okay.
All right, we'll continue. So our next part is all about content, because to have a great website, you need to fill it with great content. And there are some pieces of content that I think every website, whether you're an author, a small business owner, an illustrator, whatever, you should have. That's what I'm listed here. First is an about section. That could be about you, it could be about your books, about what you write, about your business, about your services, a combination of those. But they should give people information so that they can get to know you. And often those are written in third person. And I think that's just a standard these days, and it's kind of what's expected, but it also kind of has that professional air about it. And I think that's probably why most are written in third person. I have seen some first person, really the only first person about sections I've seen have been from bloggers, which I could kind of understand because they are their business. But especially if you're an author, I will say that it's expected you write in third person. Social media links. As we just said, we believe that to have a healthy online presence, you need a combination of both a website and a social media. And if people are on your website, you want to be able to navigate them to your social media connections. So having direct links to those. Sometimes you can also offer feeds, and feeds are just, yeah, I'm going to call them like widgets, little widgets you can add to your website that will show like maybe your most recent posts or something like that. So it gives them a little preview before they click and follow you on that social media site. Most of us, whether you're a business owner or an author, you are associated with some sort of professional group. And you want to mention those because, again, you are showing yourself as a professional, as trustworthy, as knowledgeable, and all of that helps. Often these groups will have badges or logos or something you can download and add to your website. And I highly suggest you also link to them so that people can check out what that group is, so they can see for themselves, if they're not familiar with the group, why that is important to you, or what makes that a good professional association. Also, you want a way for people to contact you. Now, you don't have to give out your phone number, your home address, or anything like that, but I would say at least at minimum an email address. You can create an email address just for your website if you want to, so that you don't get a lot of spam. But you know, if people are visiting you, more than likely, a few are going to want to contact you directly. So just like on a business card, you want to have some form of contact information. And then, of course, you don't want just text on your website. You want to intrigue people. You want to grab their attention. So visual content is also important for a website. I'm going to get into this a little bit more in detail in the next slide or two. But, you know, it's important that you're appropriating visual content the right way. So you're either paying for licensing or using copyright-free images. And then finally, what I think is one of the most important things that a lot of people don't necessarily have on their website is a call to action. And a call to action is a marketing term, but it really just means a next step for your site visitors. So I like to think that when you're planning a website, you're going to take your visitors on a journey, and your call to action is your destination. So they're going to come, They're going to navigate through your website. And then what are they going to do next? Well, you want to have a call to action. You want to give them something else to do to stay connected with you. And we're going to talk about that more in our next coffee break, because I need another sip of water. So, quick tip about a call to action. As I said, it is, I think in the marketing world, it really is a big thing. You can see call to actions on social media, and I don't know that you'll ever meet a website designer who says, "Oh, you don't need a call to action." They've become really an important tool. But one thing that I do notice is that not everyone really makes their call to action stand out. Sometimes they'll just have a little button like follow me or sign up or something like that. But what they fail to do is give people a reason to follow them, and they don't really ask. Ask nicely, but some people will completely bypass that button unless they're asked. So, hey, follow me on Facebook, and I'll share with you my latest artwork or something like that. So give them a reason and ask them to take that next step in connecting with you.
I want to throw in something if I could.
Yeah.
I think we've all been to a website where we want to look at their clothes or order something, but we keep getting pop-ups to, follow them or sign up for the newsletter or whatever.
Those are call to actions, yeah.
Yeah. And we click through because I don't want to deal with that right now. I want to do this. But then they keep popping up over and over and over again. And after like the third or fourth time, it just gets on my nerves, and I'm never going to do anything they want.
Yeah. I mean,
so there's a balance between asking your visitors to do something and annoying them with it enough that they're just going to never go back to your website ever again.
Oh, sure. Yeah. Yep. Yes. No, agreed. Like, I'm guessing for certain industries, those pop-ups are helpful. And typically you'll see the pop-ups offer incentives, and probably the most successful ones offer a coupon or something. And I would say you don't want to pop up on your website unless you have a very specific and strategic reason. My call to action that I would say recommend for most people should just be a section on your website. Something, like I said, just something that they could do next instead of just leaving your website without connecting with you further.
There's a bunch of graphic designers that I follow that if you sign up for their whatever, that they will send you a special like mini box of graphics or fonts or other things with a proper license that you can use.
Yeah.
And so one of the techniques is to offer them something useful. And
give them a reason.
And we collect graphics, with proper licenses, and that's a great way to do it and to learn other people too.
Yeah, totally. Give them a reason to take that next step and ask them to take the next step. Yep. Okay, so let's talk about special content, because that's content that I kind of think anyone, no matter who you are, would want on your website, but that's not the only content you should have on your website. And the rest of the content will probably depend on who you are, what you do, and what your goal is. It could be a testimonial, especially if you're a business, if you're trying to sell stuff, if you're trying to sell services, you want testimonials that speak to how good your services are, how good your products are, something like that. If you are an author, especially published author, even if you're self-published, I highly recommend a media kit. Illustrators too. If you are going to like a speaking event, like a school or a library or a conference, they're going to want to be able to go to your website and download a media kit. And we will include, I don't have this on my resource slide, but When we send out our list of resources to all the attendees later, we'll have like our favorite media kit for authors. But if you Google media kit for authors, you'll usually find some information on what you should include in that. And like I said, that's usually something downloadable that people can use. Obviously, if you're like a brick and mortar store, you're going to want location information so people can find you. Event calendars are great for several different types of businesses and people. Shopping capabilities if you have actual stuff to sell. And I do want to say this is not like a complete list. These are just some other ideas of things that you might want to consider. Okay, now we're going to get a little bit into some lawyer speak, but we want to say we are not lawyers. We don't play them on TV and we don't play them in real life. So I don't want to give legal advice, but I do want you to be aware of some of the laws and legal stuff that surrounds website ownership. And one of those things is policies, cookie consent, and terms of service. Now, I think in this day and age, almost every website is probably going to need one, if not more of those. Like you may need a combination or you may need all of them. It depends on certain things. And like I said, I'm not a lawyer, but we do have a resource for this that we will give at the end. And so I'll speak a little bit more about that later. But I think it is important for you to know that more than likely when you have a website, you're going to need to look into this because violations can result in fines no matter where you live in the world. And often the laws that are put in place, they do not cover you from where you live, but they cover your website visitors from where they live. So if you by chance are doing a lot of business with people in California, California has very strict privacy laws. And if you are doing business with them, with people in California, you're required to comply with their privacy laws for their citizens. And the same thing goes for like UK and the EU and Canada. They have all of their own laws. Different states in the US have different laws. It's really hard to keep up with them, I will say. So like I said, we'll talk about a resource that could help you with that later. And our last bit of legal advice, non-legal advice, but something you should be aware of is appropriating content. And this mostly goes for those visual images like I mentioned earlier, but this also includes fonts. If you use special fonts, a lot of people use special fonts in their branding or for their business cards and stuff like that. Well, those are artistic works too. So it could be photographs, it could be illustrations, it could be fonts, it could be icons. All of that is created by someone and often has some sort of copyright clause attached to it. So I will say that there are companies out there who are now making a business out of helping artists go after copyright infringement. So if you are pulling an image off of the internet, like you Google like cute puppy, and then you pull an image and you throw it up on your website or you post it in your social media feed, they have businesses now that will use, they actually have technology that, can search and match images. So they'll search, if they find matches of this artist's work on your website or your social media feeds, they will come after you and they will ask you to pay a fine or they will escalate it to, hopefully, you won't go that far, but they'll escalate it to the courts. And normally you'd think an artist probably would not have enough money to like sue anyone for copyright infringement, but now we have whole entire businesses that are backing these artists, and obviously they're making a profit on it. So I don't want to say that it's all goodwill, but there is now power to help artists get credit for their work and get paid for their work. So make sure if you are using images, fonts included, anything, you have proper licensing. I have a couple resources, like I mentioned at the end, where you can get free images that are copyright free, but there are a lot of resources out there on the webs, on the interwebs. And I would recommend, before you download anything, before you purchase even licensing, you read in detail what the copyright is on that resource, so that you know how you can use it. Because I've even seen licensing that will only allow like a certain amount of views on a website. So like 100,000 views. And if you go over that, then you are infringing the licensing. So just pay attention to where you're getting your artwork from and how you're using it.
I also want to add, from a human standpoint, I know lots of folks that draw art, that write fan fiction, that write all sorts of stuff, that have had their stuff stolen, sometimes hacked up, but they'll just take it and repost it. And it's upsetting to them, it traumatizes them.
Yeah.
That they lose control of their work. And some people think it's a victimless crime. We're helping the person by getting their stuff seen. No, what you're really doing is traumatizing them and causing them more stress. And as we've learned in the past couple of years, everybody's going through their own stuff, and we don't want to be the cause of more stress and trauma for anybody else, even if we're not doing it purposely. So just be cool. Yeah. Be cool, everybody.
Yep. Yeah. So make sure, however you're getting your artwork, it's ethical and legal. Okay, so now we are going to get into design, because content is great, but it can be boring without great design. And when I talk design, I don't always mean just pretty. I mean the structure too of your website too. That goes into the design. And the first thing I want you to know about design is that it is not all about you and your taste. Well, sure it is, but you also need to keep in mind your website visitors. So if you go back to that goal, who you're trying to connect with and everything like that, you need to bring them back into your design. Like what are they going to want? What's going to attract them? And how are they going to be able to navigate your site? So, you have your journey that we kind of talked about of your website. You want to consider that before you design. Map it out. Map out that journey that they're going to take when they visit your website. And when you're all done, have someone test it, because they may notice things that you didn't notice. They may go places you didn't want them to go, or they may do something you wanted them to do last when they did it first, or, there's all sorts of things. But it's important to think about that stuff from the beginning, so that you're not going back and having to redo and fix everything. The other thing that's really crucial this day and age is to design for a variety of screen sizes, because at least half of the visitors to your website are going to be there on their mobile device.
And how many of us have been on our phones in the car and we went to look up a place real quick, and the mobile version of their website was unusable. That happens to me all the time.
Right.
Don't be one of those websites.
Yeah, and I will say, I feel like 50% is like the documented statistic, but I feel like for some industries including retail and maybe restaurants, it's probably a lot higher than 50%. I think a lot more people are like shopping from their phone and, you know, looking for places to eat on the go and stuff like that. So that's why I say at least 50% of your visitors are going to be on a mobile device. So if you are designing your website on a computer or a laptop, you want to make sure you check it on your phone and how it looks, and you know, check that journey and see if they're able to get to where they need to, you want them to get to, and where they need to get to through every device.
And have a friend check it on their stuff too.
Yes, yeah. The more people that can check it, the better. And finally, you know, you need to keep in mind cohesion. You want your website to be consistent with any current branding you have. Or if you're designing everything from the ground up, you want all of your social media presence, your business cards, anything you're handing out, you know, maybe you have signs or flyers, you want that to look cohesive, because like you don't want someone to find you on Facebook, get to know you, and maybe, like, this is going to be a wild example, but maybe you have a very goth looking feed, dark images and all sorts of stuff, and then yet they go to your website and it's all like pink bubbles and everything. They're going to think they've come to the wrong place, right? So that's kind of an extreme example, but what I'm getting at is you want to make sure that everything looks like it's come from the same person, the same business. Your color schemes are the same, your font choices are the same, and the overall feel is the same. All right, and we're going to talk a little bit about accessibility. So we, Fangirls, are very passionate about accessibility, and we're constantly trying to learn more about accessibility, because we do feel like it's an important component. It's always been important, but I think the need for it is just starting to be recognized.
And it's becoming law. It is law in a lot of places.
It is law in a lot of places.
And it's not going away.
Yeah, I mean, I think the laws are very limiting. Like, they're mostly surrounding like federal websites and people who do business, right, as on a state or federal level. But I mean, there are other reasons why having an accessible website is important, and it's usually because it just makes for great design. Like, paying attention to accessibility really helps everyone, because a lot of, and we'll talk about them, a lot of the aspects of accessibility just work for everyone. So one of them is contrast and color. So when I talk about contrast, I really mean foreground and background colors. So if you have like your like dark text on top of a dark background, it's really hard to read. And for some with a visual impairment, it may be impossible to read. But even if you don't have a visual impairment, even if you have 20/20 vision, it's just going to be annoying. So there are actual standards, accessibility standards for contrast, and we, at the end, will have a resource to share that can help you check contrast on your website. And then the other thing is color choices. So like maybe your overall aesthetic might be like 1980s and neon and fun and everything like that. And I love that. But can you imagine like reading an entire website in pink neon, like text? It like no one is going to want to do that. And like I said, someone with a visual impairment maybe not be able to do it at all. So, so really pay attention to your color choices. I'm going to give our presentation as an example. So we, Fangirls, use like jewel tones, and we have this dark blue text, which is a little more easy on the eye. So we tend to use that for more of the text. and we have this lovely fuchsia color, which we love. But if we use that for like all of the text, I am sure it would be a little jarring. So we use that as an accent color instead. So, you know, if you have bold or bright colors that you really love, find small ways to use them as accents instead of for the majority of your content. Another concept is called white space. And it really is just a term because it doesn't really mean white space. It's not about the color at all. It's more about spacing out your content and giving your visitors some breathing room. If you have, like when we talked about our content, like if you have your about section and your contact form and everything squished up next to each other on the screen, people aren't going to know what to do first. Their eye is going to have a hard time deciding where it should go.
So I was just going to add, I have ADHD, and it's really bad on websites. If there's too much stuff on a page, it visually overwhelms me, and then my brain just vapor locks. And so I need proper spacing so that my brain can function. And that's just how my brain processes visual stuff.
Yeah, exactly. Yes. Yeah, agreed. So that's why white space is critical. And it just works for everyone. It helps you take them on the journey you want them to go on. So like you tell them what's most important through the structure of your website. And like, what's the first thing they're going to see when they land on their website? And then they're going to scroll down and there's going to be some space and they're going to have some breathing room and they'll scroll down in the next part of the journey. All of this is important. If you have everything crammed in close together, they're going to get confused on where to go next. Where's the next part of their journey? They don't know. Another important thing is font choice and readability. You'll notice, again, I'm going to refer back to our presentation. We do have our we love our fun, like comic book style Fangirl font. But we don't use it for all of the text because if you had to read my entire slide in that top header font, you probably would hate me. But it's fun, and I think it does add something to it. So we choose to use it for our headers, and for the rest of the text, for the main content. And I would do this on a website. You want a very easy to read font, and I think accessibility-wise, they often recommend a sans serif font, and I know that's kind of a designy term, so a lot of people may not know what that means, but can you see my cursor? Hopefully you can. It just means it doesn't have the little doodads at the end of each letter. So it's sans without those serifs, those little doodads at the end. And,
for instance, Arial is a sans serif font. It doesn't have all the little feet. And Times New Roman does have all the little feet.
Yes. Yes. And for people with a visual impairment, and even for just the general population, sometimes those little feet can like blend in and it can be hard to decipher letters. Another thing is I would always recommend at least a 16-point font. So if you're in your website builder or whatever, I know like for most writers out there, you probably hear 12-point font, 12-point font. Well, that's fine for submitting your manuscript and everything like that. But for a website, I think the general standard is at least 16. I would say 16 to 18, and that would be just for your like paragraph, your main content. Your headers can be a little bigger and that kind of stuff, but you don't probably want anything smaller than that you want people to really read. And finally, I want to talk a little bit about expectations, because websites have been around for decades and people just have certain expectations when it comes to websites. And like, for example, like if I am out and about and I'm going to meet my friend at a restaurant, I don't know where the restaurant is. I'm going to navigate to the restaurant's website. I am going to immediately scroll to the bottom of their website in the footer, and I expect to see their address or a link to their location information or something in that footer, because that's just become an expectation for me. And there are different expectations. In our coffee break in just a minute, I'll kind of give you a tip on that. But like navigational menus, the menus on websites are often now, you'll see them at the very top of a website. You don't want to get so creative with your design that people get frustrated and they can't find the things they expect to find in the places they find it. And finally, like hyperlinks are often just hyperlinks, so that's usually like a text or something like that within the text that you can click on, and it'll navigate to another website or another page on your website or something else. Those are often underlined in blue, and they just kind of differentiate and tell people, hey, this is a hyperlink, and if you click on it, it's going to take you someplace else. If you mask those or do something different with them, people are not going to understand what that is. So get creative with your design, but not so creative that you're messing with people's expectations and you're frustrating them. All right, it is time for our quick tip. So yep, go ahead.
I was just going to say, before we get into this one, I wanted to back up a little bit because sure. Elaine had a question, or she had something to share about the previous thing about copyrights and stuff. Is she says there was a scam going around where she was accused of having a copyrighted image on her website when she did not.
Oh.
And I haven't heard of that one before, Elaine, but thank you for sharing that.
I want to say that I think I honestly don't know, because I haven't received many myself, but you know, anytime there's like something, an industry that pops up, so like those copyright companies that are actually out there and that are going after people on artists' behalf, there's always going to be the people that take advantage of that.
So yeah, everything in life, there's scams,
right? Yeah, so yeah, that is good to be aware of. But like, if you know where your images came from and you know you have the proper licensing and permission to use them, then you don't have to worry about that. If you get an email or something, you're like, well, I know this is a scam because I have done my research.
And then Elaine had a question. She asked, is it better to have a dark font on a light background or white text on a dark background? Is it better to have dark font in a light background or light font on a dark background?
I think I don't know that one's better. I'm going to go back to the contrast. It's all about contrast, and it probably depends on the colors. So, you know, like you want those color choices that are going to be easy on your eyes for your background. You don't want a jarring color as your background. But I honestly, I kind of gravitate towards designs that kind of break things up with a combination of both. And if it's done the right way, I think it looks elegant, and then it doesn't rely on just one mode. But as you can see, like even in this slide, I have like a little call out box with our quick tip that's a dark on white text, and then opposite. So I think both can work. You just need to be aware of your color choices, and then also that contrast. And there are, like I said, contrast checkers out there. We'll recommend one that will help you decide whether or not there is enough contrast in your designs. All right, we ready for our quick tip?
Yep. Sorry.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, it's fine. All right, so my quick tip, and this is all about design and content and even accessibility, those expectations I talked about. What you should do when you have a website, when you're about to have a website, before you start on your website journey, even if you're there and you decided you want to make some changes, it's a good idea to check out as many other websites as you can. And I would look at people within your same industry. So if you're an author, a writer, like look in the genre. If you write for kids, if you write for teens, look at other people who have websites in that same area of you. Look at competitor websites if you're a business, and go through it. Go on their journey. Find out what content they include, what you liked, what you didn't like, what confused you, where they have their location information and everything. Like you may notice some patterns, and those are probably patterns for a reason. Those are expectations. So,
and April, the same thing works if, like, the business is about training animals. Check out those websites. Do you like them?
Certainly.
What do you like? Keep notes or mental list on what you like and what you don't like.
Yes, yeah. I'm always surprised when someone wants a website, but they've never really been to any of their competitors' websites or anything like that. So like that's always the first piece of homework I give out is check out other websites, because it will really give you information on what you want and what you like and what you don't like, and also just kind of what works, because things that you think might be great on a website and you see on someone else's website, you may change your mind on. All right, and the last part of our website is a little technical. I'm hoping to not get too technical. So I can clarify anything at the end, but I do feel like if you are a website owner or you're about to be a website owner, it's important for you to be familiar with certain terms, because people will throw these terms out at you. And if you really don't understand what they're talking about, like A, they could take advantage of you, but B, like you could be missing out on stuff. So I think part of our Fangirl Foundry mission is to kind of like educate people and empower people with knowledge so that they can make choices and have a great business without like getting too overwhelmed. So that's my goal for all this technical jive I've got. We're going to start with a little glossary. I'm going to just give you an overview of each of these. I think everyone probably knows what a blog is. If you don't, it's an online journal, and I can talk about more at the end if you have specific questions about blogs. But things you should know. First of all is analytics. And analytics is, sometimes you'll hear Google Analytics, but there are more than just Google that does analytics. There's analytics on pretty much any social media site that you use. If you have a professional or business profile on that social media site, they will probably offer analytics. Analytics is just data. It's data about visitors. It's data about the habits of people that visit your page or visit your website or whatever. And that data is used to make decisions so that you know if that journey that you planned is working out. Are people visiting your website? Are they going where you expected them to go? All of that is analytics. Analytics is one of those things that does often, I'm not going to say often, I think it always at this day and age requires some sort of privacy notice. So if you have analytics on your website, you are more than likely required to have a policy associated with that and disclose what kind of information you are collecting from your visitors. A domain is your website address. So fangirlfoundry.com is our domain, and it just kind of tells you where to go. Host or hosting is a website, essentially all it is some files, right? Some computer files stored somewhere. Where are they stored? They are usually stored on humongous servers in some warehouse owned by some hosting company, and they give access to other computers to those files so that people can view your website. And, you know, just like if you were going to go rent an apartment, space in an apartment complex, you're often going to pay for renting space on someone's server. Are there ways to do it yourself from your home? Yes. Do I recommend that? No. Because, and we'll talk about hosting a little bit. We'll get into some, you know, like how to pick out a good host and why good hosting is important. HTTP and HTTPS, I'm going to kind of bundle up in one thing. I think industry standard now is HTTPS. So all of that is this protocol for your computer. You don't really need to know it, but your computer, it tells your computer that you are about to go to a website. So say, you're going to go to a website, and this is the website. So HTTPS, and there's like a colon and a backslash and a backslash, and then the domain fangirlfoundry.com. So it's just telling your computer you're about to go here, and here's the address. So the S is just an add-on, and it basically tells the computer that it's a secured website. And there are specific licensing in the companies who issue those licenses that offer, like, they kind of like offer the security towards you. So it's saying, hey, we vouch for this website, it's secure. And nowadays, like I have like, you know, like Norton antivirus, that kind of stuff installed on my computer. If I try to navigate to a website without that S at the end of the HTTPS or at the end of the HTTP, it will block the website. It'll say, are you sure you want to go here? This website is not secure. And most people will just say, no, I don't want to go here. That's scary. So it's become a standard. However, most hosting companies, we'll talk about that in a little bit, include those certificates. So you more than likely won't have to worry about it. But if you don't have one on your website currently and you have a website, I would recommend looking into getting one.
I want to throw something in here, if I could. So my web browser secure stuff at home does not block websites that are not HTTPS, and I'm going to be taking care of that very soon. But in my day job, where I do graphic design, one of the other jobs that I do there is I do purchasing for our program, and I needed to go to a professional organization to renew our subscription with them for the next year, and their website was not secure. It was just HTTP, and they were wanting us to give the court credit card information, but that it's not a secure website. And so I contacted them about that, and they got really persnickety and really ticked that I would even ask this. But when you go to a website, especially if you're going to spend money and enter any personal information, it's just part of keeping you and your information safe. Try to get into the habit of just looking in the upper left hand corner to make sure that that little S is there. Because if it's not, the website is not encrypted, and you're opening yourself up to having your stuff stolen.
Yeah, I mean, yes. And it could also mean that the website has somehow been compromised. And sometimes websites will be set up with a certificate, but if something happens, you know, those certificates are monitored. If something happens that violates that certificate, it will lose its encryption. And so it is important. And if I got a security warning on a website where I was going to make a purchase from, I would not make the purchase from the website as a personal choice. Wouldn't do it. Okay, and then SEO, that's a term that gets thrown around a lot. That just stands for search engine optimization. Pretty much it just means how you rank in the Google list. And you know, it really means any search engine, you know, whether you're searching on Yahoo or MSN or whatever, but Google's the biggest. Optimized websites rank higher in that list. And I will say that, like, we'll get into SEO later, but most people will click on the top 2 results. So SEO there's a lot of talk behind it, but it's also not an easy subject. And then finally, URL. URL is just the big, long, it's where your domain might just be fangirlfoundry.com. Your URL includes everything you need to navigate to that. So that would probably be the HTTPS or blah, 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 blah. So let's talk domains, because domains are an important part of your website, and they are unique. Domains have to be officially registered, and no 2 can be alike worldwide, because the internet, it's a World Wide Web, and we can't get confused with, I mean, just like in a town, you know, I have a unique home address because it's based on not, you know, my street number, my street name, my town, my state, and my zip code. Well, a domain is kind of all of that in one short little thing, and shorter is better, as we'll get into, but they have to be unique, otherwise people can't find you. And often it's recommended that you stick with a .com, because, and that's just because most people expect .coms. There are exceptions to that though. Like if you're a nonprofit, .orgs are expected. I will say you can get a .org even if you're not a nonprofit, but I think most people, if they navigate to a .org, they're going to expect it to be a nonprofit. So I don't recommend that. However, I will say I am seeing a trend that I am intrigued by, and that is there's these like kind of fun, they're almost custom extensions. Like they have one that's like .space, .design, .something, and people are using those as kind of almost part of their branding, like to kind of make their domain and their brand a little more unique. And I think if it's done in the right way, it could be a good move. So, so I say stick with the .com most of the time, but I kind of have a feeling that the trend is going to have more of those unique, more branding related extensions as we go further. But that's just my personal prediction. So do with it what you will. But whatever your domain is, it should relate directly to your brand. You don't want people to guess. So like people know us as Fangirl Foundry. We don't want to have a, hey, we're greatfans.com, because our domain is fangirlfoundry.com. There's no guessing work involved. You want to keep it short, easy to spell, and easy to pronounce. I'm trying to think of an example, but
I have one.
Oh, do you? Okay, good.
Several years ago, when I was whenever you write and you want to try to get an agent, there's a whole big, huge process you have to go through. And one of them involves sending out a special type of letter to agents. Well, there was at the time an agency that had just changed their name, and I can't even remember what it was, but it was something that used they spelled a common word slightly differently because they thought it was cute and it went with their brand, but it just wound up that almost nobody could find their website,
right?
Because nobody could figure out the way that it was spelled, and it somehow confused with the letters and the rest of the name. And they, after like 2 or 3 years, they gave up and changed their name because it wound up being a complete disaster.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So you really want to make it as easy for people to find you, because they don't have your business card in front of you. If they don't have a link to it right in front of them, and they're just typing it in. You don't want them to second guess and find something else. So the other thing I would recommend is steer clear of hyphens in your domain for the exact same reason, because people don't expect those to be there. Double letters can be confusing. I speak from experience because I do have an author website, and I write under my initials R.S. Hansen, and I chose a domain author R.S. Hansen. And the first time someone saw it, they just didn't see the double R's and they just said author S. Hansen. And I was like, oh, I just made the biggest mistake. Like, I just made my own mistake. I couldn't believe I did that. But so double letters can be confusing unless, like, I would say, like, they are part of a word, obviously. Like, if it's like little books or something, you know, people are going to expect that double T and the double O in little books. But if it's not something commonly recognized, if you have two words next to each other that end and begin in the same letter, they might get confused there. And then last, be careful of trademark infringements. Do not use other people's brand names in your domain name, even if it's available, because they could go after you. There are ways. I want to
add, if you're an author and your name has like two T's in the middle, do not think you need to change your name. That's fine.
Yeah, I mean, right. Like, so yes, right. I'm saying if it's meant to be there, that's fine. But where it gets confusing, I think, when it's two words next to each other.
Yeah,
that's and begin in the same. Yes, that gets confusing. Yeah. So you can check on the availability, and we'll give you a recommendation for that in our resources to see if a domain you're thinking of is actually available to purchase, because I'd hate for you to fall in love with the perfect domain and then go out there and find out you can't have it because someone else does. And then also another side note that often web hosting services will offer like a free year, sometimes free completely wrapped up in your hosting service, but sometimes they'll just offer like a free year of domain registration along with that, so you don't have to use a separate domain registrar. So that's just always something to check on.
I want to add a couple. Oh, I'll add them here. I had a couple of things to add, but I'll add them here.
All right, that's fine. We are 11:11, so I don't want to take up too much time. Okay.
But, yeah. That if you are an author and you're thinking about getting a website, do not name your domain after your first book. Because I've seen some folks that have done that. Do not name it after a book, because books don't last forever. And hopefully you're planning to write more than one book. And then what happens when you have 3 or 4 books and your website is named after the first book?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, you could. You could. Like, without getting too technical, there are ways to have multiple domains pointed to the same website. So you could, if you wanted to, purchase domains, but that shouldn't be your main domain. Your main domain should be one that's permanent that you could use. Yeah.
And the other one, just really quick, was the whole process of choosing. If you're not going to use your name, the whole process of picking the correct website name, it can take weeks or months. It took us weeks and weeks to decide. And we were helping some friends of ours come up with a domain, and it took them it feels like a couple of months to come up with their name. It can take quite a while. So don't think you can think of it in an hour or two and be done with it. Sometimes it happens, but don't be surprised. Take as much time as you need.
Yep. Yeah. And the other quick thing I want to mention is that a lot of people associate www. blah, blah, blah with a domain, but that is not a necessity. We do not have www.fangirlfoundry.com. And actually there's technical reasons to include a www, but that's really for like websites that get a lot of visitors, because it just adds a different type of protocol to it. So you can have a www, but you don't need it. And I think it's something that's kind of like only used in certain circumstances nowadays. So that's one thing to know. Okay, so we're going to talk a little bit about hosting. I don't want to go too fast, but I also don't want to, I want to leave as much time as we can for some questions. So there's a lot of confusion around hosting, and I think the main thing you need to know is no matter what your website is, where you get it from, whatever, it's hosted. It's hosted somewhere on some server. But there are hosted website builders, and so those you may know as like Wix, Squarespace, WordPress.com, all of those out there. They offer the software to build your website, and then they host it on their servers. The thing about website builders is they're often limited. Like, you can only have certain designs, you do certain things, and usually it depends on the type of plan you have. Like, like most things, the more you pay, the more things you can customize and change, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I do often find that in the long run, those can be more expensive than if you were to build a website from scratch. But they sometimes offer free plans, and if that's where you're starting out because you don't have the money to spend, I can totally understand that too. A self-hosted website, though, is a website that you can build from the ground up. And I will say WordPress.org is open source software that uses the same builder, but it's a version of the software that can be installed on any server to help create a website. And so there are two types of WordPress ones. There are the ones that are hosted on WordPress.com, and then there's ones that just use the open source software, and they're self-hosted. And by self-hosted, that doesn't mean at your home. That means by paying a professional hosting service to hold your website. And the benefit to a self-hosted website is that you have complete control. It's the difference between renting and owning a house. Renting, maybe you can paint the walls a few different colors. Maybe you can hang up a few things. Maybe you can't. Depends on your landlord. So same thing, depends on your website builder. But with a self-hosted website, you own it. You can do whatever you'd like. Knock down walls, put up pages. The sky's the limit. Obviously, you want to make sure whatever your plan is, you have enough space. So you've purchased enough property if you're going to build a huge mansion, you have enough property, you have enough space on their server to host that mansion. But self-hosted websites just offer more flexibility. So when you're looking for a self-hosting plan, this is what I recommend looking for. First of all, that SSL certificate that we talked about with the HTTPS. Most self-hosting plans will list that as a benefit, like they will offer that in their plans, some sort of security encryption. And I think that's pretty important. Like I said, you need it for your website. So make sure if you have a hosting plan, it includes that. Speed is something that's hard to gauge, but speed is usually measured in bandwidth. So it's the amount of data that they let you transfer. If you have a small website, like a small one-page website, you're not transferring a lot of data from a server to someone's home computer. So your bandwidth is going to be relatively small. But if your website grows to be bigger and you're still using the bandwidth that was meant for that tiny one-page website, it's like a semi-truck going down a one-way street. It's going to go a lot slower. It's going to serve the website a lot slower. So that's why you want to make sure that you have the storage and the bandwidth that's for the website that you are planning for. Security, some terms I would suggest you look for is backups, if they offer backups, because if something goes wrong, if you do get hacked, which hopefully you won't, but if you do get hacked or something like that, that they have a way to restore a previous backed up version of your website. And some plans will charge extra for that. Some will include it. So that's just something to be aware of. If they mention something about anti-spam, anti-malware, any of kind of that stuff, that's kind of what you want to look for security. Size, again, is going to be, you know, if you're looking to build a mansion of a website, a huge website, you want a plan that will give you the server space for that website. If it's just a small website, you can probably start with a basic small plan. But you want to make sure that, you know, those are usually measured in like gigabytes and stuff like that, that whatever they're offering is the size you need. But I would be careful of unlimited plans because they don't mean unlimited. They say unlimited, but they will dock you somehow. And usually they dock you with speed. So they know how to punish you, and that is to punish your visitors. This has happened to a client before who was using an unlimited hosting plan, but they had so much stuff saved on their server, even though it was unlimited, that it just slowed down their whole site, and that was because their hosting plan was kind of like docking them for having such a huge site, and it was in their fine print. We found it in their fine print. So, service, I recommend 24-hour phone or chat support because if something goes wrong on your website, you want someone to help you fix it as soon as possible. And a lot of providers now offer 24-hour phone or chat support, and so I think it's just something you should look for.
Because when stuff breaks down, it always seems to be at night or at the beginning of a long weekend.
Yes,
that's
exactly
the way life works.
Yeah, and most of the time, I will say, like 75% of the, no, 90% of the time that I have had an issue with a client's website for any reason that required me to get the host involved, it was like a really quick fix, something I just needed to ask them to do or check or change or something like that. And so, but you know, like if it happens at an inconvenient time, your website could go down, and it could be this quick fix that you need done, but no one's available until Monday at 8 a.m. Eastern time or whatever. So, and then also just keep a lookout for sales. A lot of hosts will have sales, like, you know, Black Friday sales, Labor Day sales. I've seen them all. So the next part is about hosting, but we are so close. I mean, not hosting, SEO. I have like 3 slides of SEO, and that ends. So I kind of wonder if there are any questions first that I can make sure in case someone needs to leave at 11:30 before I get into SEO and stuff like that. If anyone has any questions, I don't know, should we unmute people?
Oh. We haven't had any more questions in the chat box, so you can always unmute yourself if you have a question or raise your hand. Or has Star been doing such a good job of explaining stuff that nobody has any questions? Okay, I guess we're good.
All right, okay, I'll move on to SEO. Interrupt me if you need to. Okay, so this is the final bit. SEO is a heavy topic, so I have a few slides dedicated to it. As I mentioned earlier, essentially what SEO is how well your website ranks in those website lists. So if a person types in a word or a phrase associated with you or your business, they receive a ranked list of results. You know, just trying to help the search engines, trying to help them to find what they were looking for. But there's a lot of stuff that goes on in the background of that, what seems very simple search. And a lot of that has to do with an algorithm. So that search engine will and honestly, like most of these lists are compiled ahead of time because it is constantly out there looking at websites. I don't want to say looking because it doesn't have eyes, but you know, it's constantly scanning websites. It's looking for things that are relevant to searches and stuff like that. There are things that, you know, you can do to help make it more visible to search engines. But what they will do is look for, look for websites that match those words or phrases that someone requested, arrange them in what they feel is the most important order. Like, this is the most relevant to what you asked for, and then hand them over to that user. Now, some people pay, and you'll notice now, like in Google searches, it'll say paid or ad or whatever. Some people pay to rank at the top, but then they'll have like the organic ones at the bottom, and that's just, when they say organic, it's more like just the ones the search engine feels is the most relevant and the most trustworthy and the most useful to the user. When your website is more favorable, then your site ranks higher, you get more visitors, and you get more exposure. Like, you know, I think they say about half of the people will click on, you know, the first two results. But if you're on the first page, I think you're doing good. Like, you're doing really good. And it depends on obviously your keywords and what people are searching for and everything like that. But let's talk a little bit about what I mean by keywords. So keywords are terms and words that people will type into the search engine to look for a business. So for example, I'm going to use Annie. I hope that's okay. If like animal training. So if they type in Tucson animal training, was that it, Joanne?
April.
Yeah. Oh, April. Tucson animal training. That would be the keywords, right? So Tucson is the location, and animal training is the phrase that this person is looking for. So those are keywords that you should pay attention to. What are the keywords people are going to be typing into the search engine to find businesses like yours? Blogs do help. I know I kind of just mentioned blogs briefly. If you really, really want to get into blogging, I can answer more questions at the end. But blogs help in that they give more opportunities for keywords, and they show a search engine that you are an expert on this subject. I will say that sometimes if you overdo it, they have something called content cannibalism, and that simply means that you are at some point just competing with yourself for ranking because you have so much information on one subject. So if you have too many blogs on animal training, you know, then you kind of more competing with yourself than you are anyone else, and it kind of hurts you more than helps you. So you have to be strategic. But one thing everyone can do is organically and purposely include keywords in all of your content on your website. Do not just spam keywords, because search engines are intelligent now. They can tell the difference between a paragraph with natural words in it and just a bunch of keywords at the bottom of a website that are just randomly placed there. They know the difference now. And I will say, like, it's constantly getting more sophisticated and better. So you don't try and trick them. Just try and use them purposefully. Like, if you are really focusing on your goal, you're really showing your stuff to your visitors and everything like that, then some of this stuff is just going to be natural, a natural part of the process. New content is also great for SEO, which kind of goes along with the blogs. Like, if you're updating your website, it kind of recognizes that, and it's saying, hey, this person is fresh. They're constantly, you know, giving more information, so you may want to pay attention to them. There's also stuff on the back end that I don't want to get into, metadata that does help with SEO, and accessibility also. Really, all those accessibility things we talked about also really does help with SEO. But all this to say is people will spend, like companies will charge and companies will spend tens of thousands of dollars per month. I'm talking about per month, to rank in those top searches. So I ask often, SEO is it's a lot of work, and it's often not cheap. So I always like ask what your goal is, and how important it is for you to rank up in those top searches, because you may be competing, depending on your industry, you may be competing with people that, you know, are spending tens and thousands of dollars on it. And at that point, is it worth it? So for like authors, I often say, really, I don't know that you need to be ranked high, because most people like are not going to search for teen books, and you're going to be able to outrank all the publishers of teen books or the booksellers of teen books. You know, you're not going to outrank Amazon or Barnes and Nobles or anything like that. So, but what people want really is to find you. So if they type in your name and books, or your name and author, or something like that, you should rank up there. So it's really easy for you to check your own SEO once your website is published and everything like that. And I will say it changes. You know, the bots are constantly scanning and looking for relevant information. So you can't just check it once and then and not check it again. But, you know, check it a few times. Check it monthly, would be a great idea. But just as long as people can find you by doing an internet search, that's probably all you really need to worry about with SEO, unless you want to spend more time, effort, and money. Okay, so we're at the end. These are just a very few of our favorite website-related resources. We will be sending everyone a downloadable document with more, but just a few, I'll mention a few here. The first one is Termageddon. So when I was talking about privacy policies and all that kind of stuff, and we're not lawyers, well, the people at Termageddon are lawyers. And I attended a conference with them. I really liked them. They're great people. They're fun people. They're super, like, their company is super responsive too. If you email them, they will email you back, and like an actual person will email you back. You won't get like a standard auto response or anything like that. But what they offer is a service that like monitors policy laws around the world, not just in the US. They're actually from the EU, so they're very familiar with the laws over there, and they have like a handy like checklist when you sign up with them, that you go through and you answer questions about you, your business, and your website, and they help you decide what kind of policies you need on your website, and then they give you a little bit of code to put on your website. And once you have that code on your website, they will keep updating it. So it just kind of like auto updates your website according to whatever the privacy laws are that are pertinent to you and your website. I mean, how easy could that get? So because we love them so much, we do refer them. We have, like, if you decide to use them, or if you need a privacy policy and you're looking and you want to use them, you can use our promo code Fangirl when you check out with them, and you get 10% off your first year. And I think their policies vary depending on what you need, but you can check them out. And the other one I'm going to mention really quickly on this is nameboy.com, because we talked about domain name searching. I have looked at so many domain name generators, so many, and A lot of them are the same, and I can't say that any of them are perfect. Like even this one is not perfect, but I think it's the most straightforward one out there and the most helpful. So like you can type in some keywords or a domain you're thinking about. It will show you if that domain is available or if it's available, but it will also give you alternatives and other suggestions that are related to that domain. So some annoying things about it is there are pop-ups. It will encourage you to like purchase a domain through through a register that's also a hosting provider, Bluehost. But you don't need to. You could just use the domain generator, and that is all I am endorsing. I'm not endorsing Bluehost or to purchase the domain from them. Like I said, whatever hosting service you decide to use, you could always check to see if they offer domain registration. But I think when you're just brainstorming, nameboy.com is probably a great one to brainstorm with. And I think I will save the rest for later, and we'll get into questions because we're a little bit over. So do we need to unmute people?
I'm trying to unmute people, but it keeps telling me I can't.
Okay, so maybe I will.
I'm not fancy enough.
Okay, I just unmuted myself. So.
Oh, good. Okay. Perfect.
Any questions?
Okay.
I do. If you're a pre-published author, what kind of call to action could you include?
Pre-published? Well, okay, it's going to depend on if you are self-published. Like, are you selling your books on your own?
Or you're going to look for an agent?
Yeah.
Okay.
Ultimately.
So you have an agent. Okay. So someone else is selling your books. They're available to buy like on Amazon or
No. I don't.
You're pre-published.
I have.
Oh, I'm sorry.
One poem published in an anthology.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I'm working on picture books.
So she's in our world.
So your audience is going to be like editors and agents. Okay. I would encourage them to learn more about you through your social media, whatever social media site you use. And that might be like even, I'm trying to blank right now, but what's the book one?
Twitter.
No, the other one, the one that you can like show like your what books your latest.
Goodreads.
Like even if it's like whatever, I don't know what account you have, but like you could say, this is what I'm currently reading. Check out, my favorite book or whatever like that, and then link them to Goodreads or something like that. That would be my suggestion. Invite them to get to know you more through your social media.
So just put down my Twitter, put all my Goodreads and my social media contacts.
The ones that you use. If you have an account that is inactive, don't put it.
Yeah,
the ones that you use.
And sometimes you can put links to the ones that you kind of use, but if there's one that you are on regularly, that's the one I would emphasize.
Okay.
So, like if you use Twitter the most, that's when you're most active on. I would ask. That would be the one I would ask people to follow me on. You could have like little links to your other social media pages, but I would emphasize that one and ask them to
Okay.
Tweet at you or whatever.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
I do, but I want to let other people say things.
Anybody? Okay. Nobody else has a question? Go for it.
Okay. How do you know if something is a self-hosting plan?
Well, you have to sign up for the self-hosting plan yourself. So like if you're going to like a place that says you know, build your website right now for free. You know, like GoDaddy has that now. Like a lot of people are getting into the web, the web builders, the hosted web builders. All of those are hosted web builders. Right. You would have to, you know, self-hosted is not for everyone, you know, because unless you're like really technically, you know, knowledgeable and that kind of stuff, then you probably have to hire it out. So, okay. I would say starting with a web builder, you know, if that's within your price point and that's all you need, there's no reason not to start there. And I would say one benefit though, or I'm not going to say benefit. One thing I would recommend though is always purchasing a domain, even if you're using it with a web builder, and keeping that domain no matter what, because you can transfer that domain anywhere. So if you become a New York Times bestselling author and you want to build that mansion of a website, you can use the same domain and just transfer it over to your new website, even if you started out on Wix.
I've seen domains where people have a domain, but once they go to it, it just transfers to their Facebook page. So you don't even have to have a website to have a domain name.
Yeah. And like I mentioned before, if you had multiple domains, like say if you, one thing I will say, like people snatch up domains. Like, like I had a boss who just bought domains almost as a hobby. Like she was just like, oh, this would be a clever domain, I'm going to purchase it. Like people will buy domains just to own them and resell them.
Okay, remember that whole Mike Pence fly thing that happened during the debates last year? Before the debate was over, people had bought like almost every domain name that had to do with Pence and flies and anything. Yeah. People had bought all those domains already.
Yeah. So. But I will say Biden bought, I think.
He bought the first one, yeah.
The first one, yeah. His team was on it. I will say his team was on it. They bought it like up like that. But yeah, so I don't see any harm. And domains often, like they cost, depending on how in demand it is and who you purchase it from. Places like GoDaddy and stuff, I tend to find it's a little more expensive than like if you were to purchase a domain from your hosting company. They usually charge anywhere from like $9 to $24 per year. Okay. So that's not too much money for a domain.
I renewed mine a couple months ago, and it was $15 for a year.
I think 15 would be the average for 1 year, and so I wouldn't. If you have, I don't dissuade people from purchasing more than one domain. And you know, like if you want to purchase a domain for your book and you have the money, like there's no reason not to do it, because you could, first of all, make sure no one else snatches up, and second of all, you can direct them wherever you want to direct them with that domain.
I'm a pre-published author. I want to write picture books. If I just put my name and author, and I don't have I'm not Jane Smith.
Yeah. Are you writing as Marla? I'm just looking at your name on here.
Yes.
Yablon, is that how you pronounce your? Okay. Yeah. So I would check marlayablon.com. Because that's like straightforward, right? I would check if that's not available, then I would look into like Marla Yablon author, Marla Yablon writes. Some people you do that, or Marla Yablon books. But I mean, like, yeah, what if your picture book makes it big and someone else buys up marlayablon.com because you didn't get it originally? you would regret that decision. So that would be my first choice. If you are your business, if you're the name of the person, you know, of what you're promoting, then that would probably be my
Marla, that's exactly straightforward. What I did. The second I decided, what you're talking about is exactly what I did when I first decided I wanted to write books. I bought joannepope.com, and for years it just sat there and I never did anything with it, but the name was mine, so nobody else could take it or do anything with it.
Right. Okay. And then the other thing, can I ask questions about Fangirl?
Of course. We'll say because we're over time, if anybody wants to stay for this, you're more than welcome to. If people, it's Saturday, it's gorgeous outside. If people have places to go, by all means go places, because I actually, other than Mar, well, I do chat with April and Annie and Elaine. So, everybody knows where to find us. So if anybody needs to go, by all means do that. And we will be more than happy to answer questions or chat at any time. So
we're fine hanging out and answering questions. But yeah.
Anybody needs to go, by all means.
You need to go and you have a quick question you want to ask? Feel free. So, but yeah, otherwise, Marla, go for it.
Go for it, Marla.
Okay. As I said, I don't, I'm sort of not sure how to do a website. And if you, I was looking at your pricing and it looks like it's over $600 to design the website. What are the rest of the costs involved? What other incidental costs are there?
Sure. So yeah, the other costs that would be involved in the website would be the hosting plan, because ours are self-hosted, and domain registration. So we do, if you look at our FAQ on our website, I do have a hosting recommendation. Right now, I really like SiteGround, SITE Ground. So you could check out their plans and pricing. For that particular package, our OTP package, you only need the most basic plan offered pretty much from any self-hosting plan. So I think if they have sales, and I know they just had a sale. I want to say, what was the last major holiday?
I'm putting their address in the chat box now, and it actually looks like they're having a sale now.
Oh, good. I was going to say, I want to say they were just having a sale sometime, but sometimes you can snatch up and get like.
All right, I'm not seeing where I can find the chat again.
The chat, that's okay. It is on our website. There's a link to it on our website and our FAQ.
And we can also email you the link if you want. It looks like their sale right now is $3.99 a month for the basic website, but you always want to pay, or they kind of have you pay a year up front. So
yeah, it'd be 4 times
12.
48.
12 is 48. So $48 a year plus whatever your domain registration ends up being.
I think what is that?
SiteGround, yeah, does offer domain registration, I believe, and they are usually cheaper than GoDaddy. Did they mention anything about a free? Because I know sometimes they offer it, sometimes they don't. A free year of domain registration.
And the plan that they're currently offering for $4 a month, I'm not seeing it now.
Okay. So yeah, I would say it's probably going to be around $15. That's
a year.
$15 a year.
Yes, for the year. Okay. So for the entire year, and that will just be for the first year, because the SiteGround sale usually is only for the first year, and then it'll.
Yeah, normally it's $15 a month. It's on sale for $3.99 a month right now. So
yeah.
With who? That's with SiteGround?
Yeah.
That's the hosting plan.
Yes.
Okay.
So hosting, I guess, 50 to, I would say, like 120 a year is the average, $50 to $120 a year. Would be the average, and then maybe about $15 for your domain for a self-hosted website.
So do I have to have the site before I get the hosting, or do I have to get the hosting plan before I have the site?
Yeah, you get all of that, like you buy your land. So yeah, think of it like,
Okay.
you know, if you're going to purchase your house, you need to buy the land. So, and then we'll build the house. So we'll build your website on it. So you get your address, your domain, your space on the server, your hosting plan, and then we build.
Okay. And is the website, is that a one-time cost or?
From us?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just a one-time package deal. We do offer maintenance, like on the side.
It was $45 an hour.
Yeah, it's 45 for a half hour, because typically most people don't need much done. If they most people, when they come back to me, they're like, hey, can you change this and this on my website? And it's like, you know, it'll take me 20 minutes or something like that. So,
it's
most of the
not
time,
an expense. It's just sort of an as it happens thing.
Yeah, most of the time, updates and that kind of stuff don't require a lot of time unless you're doing like extensive stuff. So, yeah, but when we're done, we do give you a guide, and you own the website. So you own this house. You could take it to anyone. You can hire anyone you want. If you have like a niece or a nephew, a grandchild, a second cousin once removed that knows websites and can help you out, like we'll give you all the tools and information, and we'll even like have instructions if you decide you want to do some DIY stuff, to take it and do with it what you want. And then if you do need help, you could always come back to us. But
yeah, we are very specifically not the type of company that sort of holds your website hostage. There's lots of companies that will do that. We are not them.
Yeah, we're just, the contracted builders, you know, we'll build it, we'll make sure you're happy, and then we'll hand it over the keys to you.
And then we're done. Yeah, and then you just ask us, contact us if you have questions further down the road. So you have total control over your whole presence when we're done.
Okay, I'm just trying to, and is that price is your good price for going in? If I wait longer, it's going to cost more?
No, that's
our
business model is that we've been in writer world for many years, and you know, custom sites can easily are thousands and thousands of bucks. We were just speaking with somebody last night, and Star was saying that the cheapest custom website she's seen is $1,500 bucks. And the thing is that there's a big gap there. If you don't have the time or the knowledge to build your own website, then you're stuck with having to say thousands of bucks to have a website built. But if you are an author, if you have a small business, you just need a simple one-page site. You don't need to, you don't have to spend all that money to have all that done. So we came up with sort of a package deal where we have sort of cut the cost of doing that from $1,500 to $650, because if you just need a basic one-page website, that doesn't take a ton of time. So there's no point in charging all that money. Right. We want to help people present themselves to the world without buying new houses in the process.
And we have like some questionnaires and some worksheets that we give you because like, so normally what would happen with a custom website project is you'd sit down with a person and they'd hash out all of this stuff, you know, like they'd find out what
for days.
Yeah, and it takes hours and hours, and that's what they're paying for. Like, you're paying for their time to do that. So we have like worksheets and questionnaires that we created for our packages so that you could do all of that homework on your own and decide what you want and what you like. We have it for content and aesthetics. We kind of guide you through the process, and then when we meet with you, then you kind of already know what you want, and then we can build it. So that's how we cut our costs.
Okay. All right. I'm kind of have to think about it because
it's overwhelming. We're not going anywhere.
I joined 12 by 12 this year, and that was great. I've really gotten a lot out of it.
I've heard good things about it.
I was thinking I'd go up the next level, which costs more for my second year. And then I also wanted, and I built up a portfolio of manuscripts during the year, which has been wonderful. And then I wanted to join their submission thing, which is, so I've got to, if I do that, that's like another $600 plus. And I'm just going,
Yeah, I mean, we'll be here when and if you're ready. There are other solutions. And I mean, I think you'll know when you absolutely need to have a website.
Right.
There are benefits to having a website as a querying author. I have one. The benefit that I find is that I could, did you take Joanne's query letter workshop?
You did.
Okay, yeah, you're the one that did. So she told you, like, you only have, a few words to get your message through, but I can include that link after my signature to my website. So if they are really like wanting to know more about me, I put it all on my website so they can get to know more about me, and I don't like ramble in my query letter. So, but that is like a luxury almost. It's not a necessity. It's nice to have, and if you can afford it, then I say go for it. But it's not a necessity. Once you sign that book deal, though, I would say like have a website.
Yeah,
after you get an agent, I would say get a website. Absolutely.
Yeah, that's true.
But in the meantime, we actually know an author who is saving money away to have her website built. So we're not going anywhere. We're always happy to answer questions. You can get a hold of us at any time. And whenever you're ready, we will be here and more than happy to help you.
Yeah.
I've looked at a couple of people who have really, really simple websites with not much of anything on them because they're in the same boat. Would that be a worthwhile thing to do? And then when I have something where I really, just to have it there.
Right. So I guess my only would be, I can't see these people's websites, so I don't know exactly what they look like, but I'm going to go back to as long as it's well done, because a bad website is worse than no website.
Star has a great website. You can go check out her website.
Yeah, there's also a link to it from our Fangirl Foundry. Yeah, you can check out both of our author sites.
Yeah, in the About Us section of our website, it has links to our author websites, and you can go look at them. Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I would say you don't need much. You can see what I have on mine. You don't need much as a querying author, but you want it to give a good impression, right? So otherwise, I would just skip it all together and just link to your favorite social media page or whatever one you're most.
Yeah.
Okay.
So waiting, until you get the money together can be a good thing because it gives you more time to shop around to websites, decide what you like and what you don't like. you know, and maybe, you know, stuff you might want on yours that can help you, you know, think about things.
Okay. Well, thank you so much.
Anytime. We're more than happy to help. Let us know if you ever have any more questions,
And
okay?
nice seeing you again, Joanne.
Nice seeing you again. Thank you for coming.
Yes, and nice meeting you, Star.
Yes, nice meeting you. I'm glad you can join us.
Bye,
All right,
everybody.
we'll say
And
bye.